on a I make wine, I'm a winemaker background.
Yeah.
I've got the Rhone Valley in the back though, so I'm covering both bases.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And Nina, at the beginning or last time, we must have been just chatting like back in April or May, and we were all in lockdown. And you were saying you're sharing a dairy cow with your neighbors across the other side of your farm. Are you still milking the cow in the morning?
Well, I did delegate the milking to my husband because it was my idea to get the dairy cow, but his problem to milk it, which is, the way of the world. But we had a bit of a sad accident of sorts that we've got this naughty little pony that my little boy rides, and he got into the dairy cow's paddock one night and chased it around and around until it was so exhausted that it collapsed. It was quite an old dairy cow. And unfortunately, Bessie is no longer with us, thanks to Angus. We've got a new one. It's brutal on the farm. It's, a tough life.
Did you eat her?
Pardon?
Did you eat her?
No, not quite that bad.
Oh,
she was really old.
Cows make great beef here.
We actually probably would have, but she was really, really old. I think she was probably at the end of her life anyway.
We could talk about this a lot, Eamon. Nice. So what did you do with the carcass?
I think you should tell us about your alarm going off this morning,
Yeah,
Sam. I might collect at this point.
So there's a humble bunkhouse at the winery. So during vintage, I'll sleep on site 2 or 3 nights a week. So anyway, I slept here last night. Actually, kind of embarrassingly, I slept here the night before as well because I thought today was happening yesterday because I'm not very good with time zones. So anyway, clearly not very bright. Actually, doubly not very bright because then when I rolled in this morning, I'm sure I pushed the magic buttons to turn the alarm off, and then I'm at the coffee machine and whoop, whoop, whoop. So I've set the alarm off, but at least it got the heart racing and a little bit of a shot of adrenaline. So I'm good for the next hour or two.
Nice one.
Good to hear.
Good.
Very good. All right. Well, I think we've got lots of people on. Why don't we kick off there? Before we do, it would be remiss of me not to recognize our dear colleague Ray here, who had amazing news last week. Ray received earned the ultimate accolade, studious honor in the wine industry. Ray became a master of wine. There's only 409 in the world. I think ever since I've known you, Ray, probably 7-8 years, you've been studying for that damn paper. You breezed the theory piece, which is the tasting part of it, and the theory piece you were working on for the last few years. And we were all thrilled for you last week when you got the great news. So just want to say cheers to you. Awesome result. We're very proud and very lucky to have you. And well done.
Thank you very, 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 very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, 11 years of sweat and pain, and
11.
I am proficient in the art of failure and how to pick oneself back up and go back into the wind. But thank you very much. And, I'm with a good crew.
Yeah. It's a great lesson in perseverance, and also for customers wondering what that might mean for them. I think it's also, I've seen the last few years, it's also definitely the number one wine network in the world in terms of finding new exciting parcels and winemakers as well. And we've seen some of that in the last few years and lots more of that to come as well. So that's very exciting. And welcome to everyone. We're back with a bang on Thirsty Tuesday. I'm here with joined by Nina Stocker and Sam Plunkett, all the way down in Australia. It's very early, so we appreciate the guys coming on tonight, and looking forward to an hour. If you guys are drinking anything, I'm in good company here with Sam and Nina's wines. Let us know what you're drinking, where you are. Ray's got the same, really looking forward to a great chat. And why don't we kick off by Nina, tell us how you got started with wine.
It goes way back. I hopefully won't give you too much the long story, but I was born in Switzerland, and my parents used to help on the weekends just to get to know the locals in the little local vineyard. So I grew up around grapes and winemaking, but I always thought it was a hobby. And we moved back to Australia, and they planted a little vineyard, which again was a weekend hobby, lots of fun, but I never realized it could be a job. And finished school and went to uni and studied microbiology and immunology and history of all things. Still hadn't clicked yet that you could be a winemaker, and worked in this great little cocktail bar at night. So got really passionate about wine and cocktails and making cocktails and blending flavors and getting the perfect balance in a drink, and obviously drinking, which is, a big part of of having good fun. And and then it all clicked. My dad suggested I do a vintage as a cellar hand in a winery, and I did, and it was amazing, hard physical work outside, getting dirty and being part of a great team. And that, coupled with my love of science and geeky things like microbiology and food and wine and travel, was a no-brainer. So haven't looked back. Loved it.
That's very good. And how about you, Sam?
So perhaps like Nina, I stepped into it with my family. So, but if Nina's, actually, I know Nina's parents, and John, Nina's dad, is just nuts about wine. So I guess in Nina's case, the family passion for wine, and which Nina's picked up that thread. My family are farmers, and so actually one of my brothers, he raises sheep and was a cereal cropping farmer, and Dad does sheep and cattle and vineyard. And Dad was always wondering, what will our land do well? So and his brothers were growing wool at Hamilton, and that's terrific country if you're a wool grower. The Strathbogies, where we are, light soil, so not as productive as his brother's farm. They can run about 6 sheep an acre, Dad about 2. He tried cropping, so innovative greens like triticale when I was a kid, tried raising pigs, and they all caught a cold and died. But in the late 60s, Dad met a guy, a research scientist, Dr. Murray Clayton, and through him he got about a few thousand vines and 30 different varieties across 3 acres. So it was my family really trying to unlock what will our land do well. And from that, there are now thousands of acres of vineyard in the Strathbogies. And so I grew up with vines, and but for me, the pleasure, the joy is not so much in the growing, but in the making. So I've always enjoyed making things. So I picked up the farming thread, but taking what my brother and Dad were growing, and enjoy the manufacture part. I enjoy tinkering. So there's that's how I've stepped into it.
I think we all watching you enjoy the drinking part of the process. So
I do.
And if anyone on the call hasn't tasted either of your wines, how about Nina? Could you describe Sam's winemaking, and maybe Sam, you do the same for Nina, having known each other for so long?
Yeah, describe Sam's winemaking style, technique. Is that what you said?
What to expect.
Yeah, Sam's a great winemaker. I've always really enjoyed his wines and watching how he does things. His wines are always really full of fruit and expressive, and also really speak of where they come from. I think Sam uses oak and winemaking as a accompaniment to the fruit, which I really like. It integrates really well with his wines, and say that his wines are always delicious.
Thanks, buddy. So Nina and I live quite close to each other, and we would talk, I'm not sure, a couple of times a week. And I really enjoy being able to borrow Nina's superstar palette. So she's got a really unusual ability to crawl inside a wine, see the shape and the textural piece, and then with tweaks of blending or fining, the real nuances that will elevate a wine that little bit better. So Nina's super super competent, and we probably share this thread of express the region, express fruit. I'll say technically correct wines, but Nina's kind of next level palate is the thing I see, and I enjoy Nina's wines.
Thanks, Sam. I love, I have to say, Sam's an awesome one for ringing when, and I've got a lot of really great winemaking friends who are like this as well. There's a real kind of, sometimes wine can be very intimidating, and, the science is very detailed and complex, and so is the tasting. But obviously there's this big variable with wine, like although it's a science and there's chemistry and microbiology involved, there's such a lot of unknown, which is the reason why I love it. Because even though, the science says this should happen, it can do the complete opposite. And Sam's a great one to call when the complete opposite has happened. And I say, what's going on here, Sam? This has happened and it doesn't make any sense. And some people could be quite intimidating in that sense, and say, oh, well, you've done it wrong, or, which is sometimes the reaction of people in the wine industry. But Sam's a classic for saying, same thing happened to me last year and I had no idea what went wrong, and I fixed it, but I'm not really sure why. So it's really nice to have a mate like that. You can bounce things off and muddle through together, don't we, Sam?
We do, yeah.
Nina, I remember you telling me you taught yourself or forced yourself to like coriander, which I could never imagine myself doing. So I have to bow down to your superior taste buds for sure.
I'm obsessed with it now. I went from one extreme to the other.
And then Sam, Nina mentioned how you kind of use winemaking and oak as an accompaniment to drawing out the sense of place of where you make your wines. What does that mean, and how do you manage that?
So actually, I think oak and sense of place they're probably separate things, and I enjoy them both for different reasons. So our home vineyards are in the Strathbogies. It's elevated. For every 100 meters above sea level you go, temperature drops by about 0.7 of a degree. Where I am at the moment in the heart of the Goulburn Valley, we're probably 150 meters above sea level. Home's about 500 meters above sea level, so it's cooler. So longer growing season, and nature just gifts us fruit that has more intense fruit perfumes. So with the case of Strathbogie fruit, I'll try and preserve those pretty perfumes. And then the piece about oak, I'm probably a bit of a Neanderthal with this. I love smoky, toasty oak. I love the way that the tannins that you extract from oak, they can fill in some of the roughness, some of the rough tannins in wine. So I might have misunderstood the question a bit, but I think you were putting oak and sense of place in together. But I reckon they're two separate streams. So actually, perhaps can I describe them as layers? So one would be express the flavour of a variety and a region, and then another layer of flavour which can be oak, and it could be from barrels where they've starved or when a cooper makes a barrel, they light a fire in and it helps bend the staves, and you can have a hot fire or a less heat, and so we can specify different levels of toasting, and it's literally like you pop the toast out of your toaster. Heavy toast, it'll look quite black. Light toast almost just looks like pale bread. Or a cooper, they can put a steel plate over the barrel when they've got that fire in it, and it causes it to create a lot more smoke, starved of oxygen. So you can get smoky or charry or spicy oak, and then different forests, and they've all got different flavors. So for me, it's trying to build these layers of flavor inside a wine, and it's a combination of the variety and the fruit and the region, and then these different compounds from oak. Actually, I forgot to. Should I talk about oak, or is that too much? Is that a distraction?
Talk about oak.
I remember when I visited you, you gave me we tasted every single barrel you had, but you had different coopers, different forests, different coasts, but it was always on Cabernet or it was always on Shiraz, and the variation, or rather the ingredients or the tools for an artist or a cook to put it all together was amazing, just to see how you could actually get it to where it needs to go. It's a real art, I think.
Yeah, and actually, I'm in the wrong spot to do this. We've got about 800 barrels in a room, a couple of 100 meters down that way, and the different producers, the different coopers, and the different forests. Anyway, we could talk about that. But no, actually, I'm really badly prepared. So, Eamon, I reckon you should crack on with something else while I take some.
Okay. No problem. Well, why don't we drink? Ray, you've got the Chardonnay here as well.
Yeah, I do.
Nina, if you've got coffee or water, I totally understand it. But no,
I've got everything.
I've got the Chardonnay. Yeah. This is the Feather Plucker's daughter, Chardonnay.
Well done.
And I think this is in the case that people ordered, if they ordered a case for the virtual tour. Can you talk us through this wine and how it came about and what sort of flavors we should be looking out for?
Yeah, that was to me, not to Ray, wasn't it?
You made it.
To you.
So our Chardonnay is an everyday drinking style. It's a very approachable. It's quite aromatic for a Chardonnay, because sometimes Chardonnay can be quite kind of closed in its flavors, but it's got lots of nice sort of melon and quite soft peach and pear kind of aromas. I use a little bit of oak, but just a tiny bit. So it does have just a background hint of some sort of hazelnut or toasty, smoky kind of character, but very much a background character, which just sort of enhances the flavor of the wine. It's meant to be fun, fresh, everyday drinking, great with food, but also can be enjoyed by itself because it's not too acidic. It's not a harsh wine at all. It just melds really well with food, and meant to be, as the name suggests, just a bit of fun, but something that's delicious as well.
It's got a sort of a juiciness to the palate. So like it's thirst quenching, juicy. It's sort of a crusher of a wine. Drink responsibly, but it's just got a sort of happy, knock it back, take the edge off the end of the day kind of appeal to it. And Nina, it would now be an opportune time to announce the forthcoming extension to your Feather Plucker's daughter range. What else down the line for us?
Yes, we're sending some Pinot Gris your way and also some Merlot. So that's really very exciting. And again, both very approachable, everyday drinking styles of wine, fun and fresh and varietal, but very juicy and moreish. Even at 5 a.m, I can now vouch for that. I've had some Chardonnay at 5 a.m.
Die hard. So those, for everyone watching, those should be here towards the end of October. And they're in the same Feather Plucker's daughter range. So they'd be about $7.99 for Angels. And I have tasted them, and they're very, 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 very tasty. And as you say, crusher, easygoing, happy juice. So something to look forward to next month. Nice one.
I'm melting here, which is not something I say very often in Dublin. So this is doing just the trick. A nice cold glass of Chardonnay. And Nina, could you tell us, rewind back the years to how you became a naked winemaker?
Yes. It's a little bit of a long story because it's a two-part story. I moved back from New Zealand. I'd been head winemaker at a winery in Marlborough and also making wine out of Central Otago. And we moved back to the farm to help mum and dad. They wanted to sort of take a step back from the farm, which they'd retired to. And my husband's a farmer, so that was pretty handy. And we were having our first baby. So I thought I'd just sort of make wine as a side thing now, because I was going to be a mum and I wanted to, be around, not doing crazy long days and be in the trenches too much. Wanted to be at home and around. And but at the same time, my friends Bill and Claudia Small in New Zealand, your superstar winemakers, they're yeah, great friends, had lots of fun with them in New Zealand, and they said that Naked were looking for new winemakers, and I met you, Eamon, at a pub with my brand new 2-month-old baby, I think she was at that point. We had a great chat, but at that time, and I feel very lucky that lightning did strike twice for me, because at the time it was all a bit overwhelming, new baby, first baby. And I still remember sitting in that pub with Eamon thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do if I have to feed her? And I still don't even know what I'm doing, let alone making wine for this amazing sounding company. But yeah, so I took a step back. But then a few years later, having my second baby, at which point I was obviously an expert at babies, so no problem there. Sam got in touch and said that, so Sam Plunkett, thanks to him, I'm on board. He got in touch saying that Naked was still looking for some new Australian winemakers. And this time I was 39 weeks pregnant with my little boy Max, and just thought, why not have a crack? And yeah, haven't looked back. It's been such an amazing opportunity, and very fortunate that you guys let me try twice.
And how about you, Sam?
In the very early days of Naked Wines, through a buddy, Ian Matthews, he had a mobile bottling line, and decades ago he would come and roll out his swag and sleep on the lounge room floor at home when doing mobile bottling. Anyway, somehow there was a connection there with a guy in the UK who was introducing winemakers to a really infant Naked Wines. So I think that was the very first introduction. But really, when there was a kind of upside down moment in my world, Eamon, it was you. You must have this... no, I was tempted to say something mean, which is just the wrong thing. So, Eamon, it was 2:00 in the morning, and the phone rings, and my world was all a bit shit. And so I'm up at 2:00, and you were ringing to say, "Hey, mate, we've been doing a little bit together. I've just seen this email that makes me think there's." Things aren't what you'd like them to be, and I reckon we can help you out. And I kind of couldn't have the conversation because I was, anyway, working through the tail end of a tangled business situation. But look, you might even have said, look, it wasn't long after that we were underway. And actually, Angels, to give you a little kind of insight into the early days of my winemaking with Naked Wines, we were, a neighbour had, anyway, I was exiting one winery, and I was at a fire brigade meeting, and Grant Teresha was a neighbour. Sam, we've got 4 tanks at our winery that we haven't used for a few years. We know you like winemaking, so, come in, and if they're useful to you, they're yours for vintage. So anyway, we had 4 red fermenters, and the connection with Naked Wines, and then very quickly growers were getting in touch, including offering us gifts of fruit. So from kind of being upside down, then with Naked Wines, I had a home for wine, and from growers, we had fruit. And actually, one of the growers, they had 7 tanks that hadn't been used for years. I ran the farm truck up and picked up these tanks and brought them back to the Elgo winery, which we later leased. And fruit of this Gentilani vineyard, very short of water, tiny little berries, and in a fermenter. And this tank behind me is a fermenter. The precious stuff in reds comes from the skins. And inside this fermenter here, we might have a cap that is, say, typically 4 feet thick of skins floating to the top. With this Gentilani Cabernet, we had probably 50% more cap than normal. It was almost impossible to push through. So I sent a little video to Eamon saying, we've got this amazing fruit. And if I had some money to buy good oak, I think I could make you something pretty crackerjack. So you sent us $70,000, and that let me buy 20 barrels, pay myself $1,000 a ton to turn this fruit into wine, pay the grower $1,000 a ton for the fruit. And I reckon it was about a year later before anyone got in touch and said, Sam, would you mind just letting us know you spent that money the way you would? So this awesome degree of trust from Naked Wines, and this beautiful thing of this fruit, which in that case, the Aussie wine industry was oversupplied. The fruit was going to go on the ground. So this potentially wasted, beautiful resource made in tanks that without Naked Wines would have sat dry for another vintage in a borrowed winery on concrete that would otherwise have been vacant. Anyway, this kind of beautiful thing of Naked Wines was the hub in the middle that let this fruit be this beautiful resource be used in tanks that already existed, and my winemaking head, which was otherwise going to be bored and unused. But actually, the trust piece was pretty cool. At the time when you were trying to send us money, we actually didn't even have a bank account open. So, thanks, buddy. Thanks, Eamon.
Sam, I think it'd be fair to say, and Eamon, it'd be fair to say that that $70,000 was angel money, wasn't it? People were putting in £20 a month, and Eamon just had the opportunity to sort of direct it to the right home. So it came from those who are watching this evening, some of which, and it's still, that's where the dosh comes from. It comes from people who are angels, basically.
Yeah. Actually, sorry, Ray. Good on you for saying that, because I'm speaking quite rightly, fondly, and highly of Eamon, but absolutely aware, absolutely aware that it's angel funding, and I'll carry this with me forever. I feel a real debt to angels for the kick along that I was given, and it's actually one of those debts that's really hard to repay. If you've got a good relationship with your parents, how do you ever pay them back for that? You actually can't. So I feel a similar thing with Naked Wines, and the only thing I can do is promise to do that bit extra to get something good in the wine. So the thank you is in the drink anyway. But I do feel that sense of gratitude and a debt to angels.
Very well said, Sam. And I think it's just a great story and great example of the community coming together, and really cool to hear on your end as well, the growers and people chipping in with equipment and fruit and everything just to pull you out of that situation. So that's great to hear. Ray, why don't we break there, and you take us through Ray's empties, which we haven't seen in 4 months. So make it a good one.
They've been here. I just haven't shared them. Yes. So let's see if the lighting is good enough. So just to remind those, or to recap the way we used to do it during lockdown. So I'm Ray, the wine director, and so samples are sent to me from Sam and Nina, and then I taste them. This is the illustrious setup, guys. When you send your wine, it actually comes here right beside the kettle and the eggs. That's where the magic happens. So I just want to show those who are watching some of the wines that I've been receiving this week, and share some of the top ones. So this wine, and just as a reminder, most of these, all of these, are before they're bottled, and so the guys are good enough to share that with me, and then we have a discussion around, the quality is good, the style I'll just sort of share, but not, it's sort of a contribution, hopefully you agree, rather than a dictation. And so this is so it's a tank sample, and this is Lay of the Land barrel fermented Sauvignon Blanc from Mike Patterson in New Zealand. And what's beautiful about this is that, Sam, you were talking about barrels and the contribution and the toast and how they can sort of influence. And when you're barrel fermenting Sauvignon Blanc drinkers wanted to sort of kind of taste like Sauvignon Blanc still. And so tasting that wine earlier, there's actually isn't any oak flavor. But what the barrel can do when it's not brand new and not used once or twice, but there it doesn't introduce oaky flavors. It just has a sort of steady oxygen ingress that sort of develops the texture and the mouthfeel. So that is a Sauvignon Blanc that if you taste it, you go, yeah, it's kind of Sauvignon-y. But what it has is a sort of a rich, voluptuous, silky textural mouthfeel. And it's very, very sexy. It's very smart. So that will be, what are we now, September? That should be hopefully here December. Then quickly through Arabella. In contrast, this is Arabella Reserve Chardonnay. So in contrast to Mike's wine, that smells like oak and it tastes like oak and it feels like oak. So that's more oak influence, but it's really top quality. I'd say a step up in, and with the next two wines, the Reserve wines, Reserve Cabernet and Reserve Shiraz Viognier, I think they're a step up on last year. I don't know why, but the quality was crackerjack. And don't forget, Friday, 9 p.m., the legend slot, when the fireworks go off at the end of the night, is Stephen DeVette and Jamie DeVette joining us. So if you can be there or be square. And then from a neighbor of you guys, Adrian and Rebecca Santolin, this is their Shiraz, boy meets girl Shiraz Cabernet. So this will travel over to us in bulk shipment. So we bottle that in Germany for environmental and economical purposes. So you reduce, you're not moving glass across the world, you're not that weight, you're just moving liquid across the world. So we taste it here, we ship it over there, bottle it, and then move it into the UK. And it's something we're very proud of, and it's something we support greatly because it has environmental benefits. And then lastly, this wine with absolutely no label, because that's what happens sometimes, bottles show up with no label, but I had an inkling of where it's from, and that is Luis Luro from Alentejo. That's Agile is the wine, and it is so fine tannins, elegant. In fact, we did a bit of work on it back and forth to get it right, but now it's a smart wine. So that's bottled, that's post-bottling, so that should be on the site in about 3 or 4 weeks, but it's delicious. Actually, Nina, you did a vintage in Portugal, did you, Nina?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Where was that? Where did you do that vintage?
That was at Cortes de Chima in Alentejo. It was an amazing experience.
Yeah,
yeah.
Same region. Cool. Beautiful people and beautiful wines. Yeah.
Amazing people, beautiful place. It was amazingly, when we arrived, I was sort of expecting, I don't know what I was expecting, but it looked like South Australia. It was golden fields and eucalypts, but yeah, really interesting place, and I learned a lot there. It's good.
Very good.
And Ray, Felix, our oldest son, who's 19, Felix did a vintage in Portugal in Alentejo this year, and he absolutely loved it. And Nina liked the Australian landscape, so there was a photo Felix sent to us. It could have been home. There was a merino sheep with its head stuck in the fence, and eucalypts in the background, and this kind of sunburnt country. And that was Felix. You know, we're like, Felix, you've gone to the other side of the world, and you could pull a sheep's head out of a fence here.
And of course, Felix was on tour last year, was it? Last summer? He joined on tour, yeah. And he set a new level. You know, even Benjamin Darno couldn't keep up with him. So, but it was a pleasure to have him. Please say hi to him. Yeah.
Will do. I'll see him today, of course.
Cool.
So cool. I'll jump on a few questions from Angels watching. If anyone's got any questions, use the Q&A button down beneath the videos here, and I'll pick them up. A lot of people asking about COVID and wildfires. So Nina, could you maybe talk about 2020 and how or if you've been affected by the fantastic year that's going on at the moment?
Yeah, it's been hectic from the very beginning. Our season began with an extremely dry spring and then early summer, and very, very hot. So our yields were massively down for the beginning of the season. So instead, we were about 80% down on our yield in our vineyard. So that's a fairly major already economic impact.
Just before the fires started, you were
before the fires. Yeah, but we also had that knowledge that the ground was looking dangerously like a cinder. And after, we're on the back of quite a long drought, we were pretty nervous about the fires, and then the fires began. And as you guys know, and all the messages from Angels and from you guys were amazingly supportive about Australia and the impact of the just horrific fire season that we had, for people and for wildlife, and then thirdly economic, and for grapes and for grape growers. So where Sam and I are, we were extremely lucky both to dodge most of the fire impact, but also to dodge the smoke taint, which is extraordinarily lucky, because so many growers have been affected, and a lot of the fruit that I buy for other projects has been wiped off. So stuff out of King Valley and Alpine Valley was just completely left on the vine. So perfect looking fruit, tasted beautiful, because you don't actually taste the smoke taint until you've fermented the grapes, but totally unusable fruit. So that's pretty devastating. And then followed on COVID, which had a fairly, it was quite a nerve-wracking time, because it happened for us during harvest. So we weren't sure with the lockdowns what was going to happen, whether we had to hurry to get all the grapes in, but then if the winery was going to be shut down, or whether we'd be able to sort of sail through. Fortunately, it all stayed open and kept flowing, and then also kept flowing over to you guys, because the next impact we thought might be that the ports would close and our sales would be impacted that way. But all our on-premise, so anything we sell to restaurants and bars, obviously we don't do that anymore, so that's affected our business. But luckily, thanks to all the angels and you guys, we've able to keep the wine flowing. So all in all, we feel very lucky, and hearts go out to people who don't have this avenue or the same kind of opportunities at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And how about over with you, Sam?
So a really similar story to Nina's about yield and fire and all those things. We did bring in one truckload, about 23 tons of Shiraz from Glenrowan. So actually aiming off the old Woodruff vineyard. So John Woodruff, who we've been working with for years, he's well into his 80s, and anyway sold the place last year. And the new grower, really good farmer, and we knew that, well, we got analysis on the fruit and knew it was tainted, but because we've had this unusually or pleasingly majority of our growers, we're kind of in this pocket in central Victoria with actually fires further up north and through the King Valley, as Nina described, but not directly impacted here. So there's a threshold where these compounds, the burnt hydrocarbon, the smoke compounds, where you can't taste them. So we brought in one truckload of this of Shiraz that we know has got enough of these compounds that it's influenced and in fact probably tainted by smoke. But at say 5% blend inside wine, we get the benefit of you can get the benefit of the colour and the things that are a bigger concentration, but the smoke compounds, which are measured in parts per billion, they fall below a threshold where you can taste them. And so that meant that grower will get some income this year. So we did, and we're also using that wine as a trial with the AWRI to investigate more about what can be done to pull the smoke compounds out. Because climate change, the key feature is increasing temperature. We're going to see more fires. So regrettably, something we'll have to live with. Anyway, we'll try and learn a bit more about it. And pretty funny for an Australian to be talking to the UK about the challenges of COVID. The whole world's taken a hit, but Australia, we've really dodged the worst of it. So feel for the UK community. And I bet everybody on here today, would all have some direct experience with COVID. And the mental health thing's pretty hard. So one of my brothers is in a lockup mental ward. Bron, my wife, one of her brothers is in a lockup mental health ward at the moment. People, it just dials up the pressure and can push people over the edge. And actually, there are good things coming out of it. Pretty awesome the way communities are coming together. And in our little workplace, actually 3 of our guys live on their own, and it really feels like as a crew we look after each other better and differently than pre-COVID. Even the winery, the WhatsApp chat group, there's much more laughing and gassing, where it's normally just passing on information about what's happening in the cellar. Where there's a competition who can grow the biggest sunflower, people sharing recipes. Like, it sounds cheesy, but quite literally, cat photos. I think I know Louie and Tipsy, Mark and Mick's respective cats, better than I know our own. Anyway, plenty of challenges, but some good things popping out of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's good and bad coming out for sure.
Sam, we've sort of seen some similar things up here, but there was a lot of sourdough was being baked and pasta being made at home, and people learning new things. And it has, of course, there have been the real tough side of things. But there's been a stop, pause, think, and then go again now. And hopefully we can get going again. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sam, for anyone drinking your Butterfly Effect Reserve Shiraz tonight, which amazing label, as with Nina's, beautifully designed. I've got on my glass here. Could you talk us through this wine?
So it's a blend of a few different vineyards. So about a third of this is from one of my favourite growers, a guy called Tate Hamilton at Heathcote. And then there's some fruit off the Moffat vineyard up in the northern part of the state, and a cooler vineyard called Yarradindi. And the Tate Hamilton, which is at Heathcote, it's a kind of warmish site, but often makes this quite aromatic red fruit spice thing. And certainly Yarradindi vineyard, it is cool and spicy. I love how perfumed and the real kind of bomb of fruit that this wine gives, and then it's big and rich and soft and plush. I reckon this is a great example of where a little bit of extra money really steps up the quality of the wine, because we can haul in fruit from better vineyards.
And is there ever a more Australian name vineyard than Yarradindi?
Yeah, do you know, I'm kind of pleased you mentioned that. It is owned by a Chinese partnership, and I've never met the owners, because actually apparently one of them is frightened of hopping on planes. And in Victoria, there's a famous region, the Yarra Valley. So the investors, they really wanted a vineyard in the Yarra, and they bought this terrific vineyard in a cool climate. Like, it's got a lot of the features of the Yarra Valley, but at a town called Murrindindi. So because they couldn't get the vineyard in the Yarra that they wanted, they've called it Yarradindi. Are we allowed to say how dodgy is that?
Do whatever you want. It's Australia.
Yeah.
And guys, I've been dying to ask this, so I'm glad lots of other customers have as well. Any chance of a revival or comeback of the Beauty and the Beast label, the collab between you two? Any ideas or thoughts on that?
Yeah, we've been talking about it since we last made the Beauty and the Beast in 2017, wasn't it, Sam? And yeah, we've sort of just come up with exactly what we're thinking we'd like to do, and we hope that the angels will tell us whether this sounds like something they'd like to drink. But I've been a little bit obsessed with Touriga Nacional since working in Portugal, and I think it's again going back to the landscape being very similar. Our climate, which is getting hotter and hotter here where we are, I really like to grow some Touriga Nacional. But in the meantime, I've got to get the vines in the ground. But I was talking to Sam about getting a parcel of Touriga and having a play and being a little bit indulgent with it, maybe fermenting it in amphora and basket pressing and doing all the lovely fun tweaks that we like to play around with just to indulge our winemaking kind of fantasies. And but at the same time, Sam and I were talking about how we couldn't make enough of that to satisfy the angels and to actually make it a kind of a commercial venture as well as a fun project. So we were thinking maybe about a Shiraz Touriga. So we could use the beast of the Shiraz with all those meaty kind of spices that Sam was just describing, all that fruit bomb. But then the Touriga as that kind of nuanced, interesting, aromatic parcel for the beauty to go in. So that's where we're at the moment. But we're open to suggestions, and any kind of collaboration is good fun for all of us involved, everyone in the cellar, and Sam and I like to, it's just such a lot of fun, and especially when the angels are involved and can put in their 2 bob, because we like to hear what they think.
Yeah.
And there's me thinking Beauty and the Beast was about the winemakers.
He's quite beautiful, isn't he?
And Sam, what do you think about that wine?
A cool idea. We get a little bit of Touriga from Terry Monachino's place, and actually, again, really everything Nina's describing. We love the play of the power and the perfume thing, and we've just we're pulling out some vineyard at the moment. It's in serious decline with phylloxera, which is this vine aphid that eats the roots of vines anyway. We're pulling out 20 acres of vineyard, and we'll certainly replant Shiraz. And then there's this whole conversation about what else would we like to plant. And one of a front runner for a white is we wonder about planting Marsanne. So it's all the kind of pleasurable thinking about possibility and what we could do. And I reckon the Shiraz Touriga, that'd be our front runner for a red. And then I'd love to plant some Marsanne on our place. And so perhaps at some point in the future, we could do a white blend of perhaps our own varieties. Marsanne,
sure.
Roussanne, Viognier, who knows?
Like the sound of that.
Yeah.
Well, let us know, everyone, what you think in the comments. That sounds awesome. And Sam, we've all been learning how to work remotely for the past 6 months or so. I think I hear you've taken on the ultimate remote working challenge, which is making a wine in France from Australia. Tell us about that.
So a really exciting project, and damn, I so wish the world would let me get to Chablis. So a long-held dream to make wine in that part of the world, and I reckon I'm a pretty optimistic.
Sam, sorry, just to top and tail it, you are the winemaker of the year last year, and as a result of your as a reward, you're given the gift to make wine anywhere in the world, and it was Chablis you chose. So sorry to cut you.
Thanks, Ray. So Sebastian Christophe, we had his cousin Jonathan come and work with us a few years ago. So there's a kind of an existing connection there. And anyway, I reckon I'm pretty optimistic and can have a crack at making most things work. But the reality is very hard to make wine by remote control or by distance. So we can have conversations about style and kind of framing up a wine, and I've become good buddies with Sebastian's distributor in Australia because I buy a fair bit of his wine, so I can now drink and talk more about style. I think if you work with somebody for a few years in a winery, you can get to read their mind, and it would be possible to have a much more meaningful collaboration. But look, in truth, this one's pretty tricky. We've got the language challenge, and for me, the winemaking is a really hands-on thing. You know, how to even different machines in the process affect the fruit or wine. So I'm relying really heavily, and actually the project is in good hands with Sebastian, but and I'll get there someday, one day. What am I trying to say? In the winery, or the instruction from the state government is, if you don't have to come to work from home. So Bron, my wife, she looks after the admin of our little business. So she works from home, but you can't make wine remotely. So it's tricky. Is that a long waffly answer?
Oh, luckily you've got some good men on the ground there in Chablis. Yep. So yeah, very good. Nina, lots of questions while we're on the subject of Chardonnay, about your Chardonnay, and people surprised there's oak in it, and you know, obviously Chardonnay has a bit of a bad rep from down the years. How do you get the kind of subtle oak that isn't overpowering, like, you know, it's probably, you know, developed a bad reputation for?
Yeah, and that's a lot of the comments from the angels on the site are often one of my absolute favorite comments, which happens all the time, is when people go, they start the feedback by saying, "I hate Chardonnay," and I think, oh dear, here we go. Why are you drinking my Chardonnay then? But and then they say, but this one I like because it's fresher and it's brighter, and it's still complex, but it's just a nice, easy drinking wine, and it's all to do with the percentage of new oak. So it might just be, you know, 5% oak that sees oak, and the rest of it's in stainless steel. So you get that really nice balance between that refreshing fruit character and then that just such a subtle background note of oak. But I do like to use a little bit just for that complexity, because I think this wine is it could just be an everyday drinker, but it does have a little bit more going on, and that for me is just that very subtle touch of spice and texture.
Very good. Absolutely. Sam, a few eagle-eyed angels have wondered what happened to your oak experiment from earlier on in the call.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll show you some stuff. So you can see we've got some big casks here. So those hold about 3,000 litres. And my table is a hogshead, and I'll see if I can do this without breaking anything. It's an accident that this is here, but the coding is A for American Oak 14. So this is bought in 2014, and the 38. So this is the 38th American Oak barrel we bought in 2014, and 300 litre. Branded in there, hogshead, MIS, Missouri oak, medium toast and toasted head. And
we all lost Sam. Just at the punchline. Tune in next week to find out what about. He'll be back. Talk about
from his spot. Close Wi-Fi.
Nina, talk us through the oak regime of your Chardonnay again there.
Again, okay. Well, I can talk you through the Yarra Valley. We've got a reserve Chardonnay as well, and it's a very different style. It's all in oak, but again, I'm not a big oaky kind of dominating kind of style of wine drinker, so that's what I like to make as well. So in that case, although it also goes into the oak barrels, Most of it's in actually already used French oak. So like you were talking about with the Sauvignon Blanc before, for people, so that you can still see that it's the varietal is Sauvignon Blanc, but in our case, Chardonnay. But just about 20%, 15 to 20% is fermented in large format, so less surface area to volume again. So we're getting more of that toasty kind of character, but really all about texture and layers and complexity in the wine. So, and then it stays on yeast lees, which is the mouth-filling kind of silky, beautiful layered effect that we have in Chardonnay.
This is the Brave Goose Reserve Chardonnay. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And then your view on
who's this Brave Goose,
yeah.
Nina? Because a few people are asking about the names behind all these wines.
Okay. Where did the name for Brave Goose come from?
Yeah.
Yeah. So because we, this vineyard where we are now at the home block, we used to just come up on the weekends as a family. And every year just before harvest, all of the fruit would be taken by the cockatoos. And so every year Dad would be almost in tears about the fact that we'd lost this tiny crop of fruit. So we tried all different things that could potentially deter the cockatoos, and nothing worked. And then somebody told us to get geese, which also failed miserably. And then that followed also a terrible fox attack, which killed all of the geese except for one. And so she was the Brave Goose, and she survived. But she didn't help the cockatoo situation, but she gave us a great story. And from then on, the wild goose chase obviously had to evolve, and keeping it with the theme, the feather plucker's daughter. So all just a bit of fun, and yeah.
All comes together.
Very
awesome.
Sam. You're back, Sam.
How much of that magic did you miss? Because that was the meaning of life.
In the barrel?
So, did you catch the bit about the age of that barrel or any of that stuff?
A14 38 barrel, is this American oak?
Anyway, so its next step is a flower pot. The Butterfly Effect Reserve Shiraz, it spent time in older barrels, so it doesn't get its oak flavor from the barrels. I'm not going to move anything again because that didn't go well. But these things here are oak staves and have this beautiful coffee, smoky, toasty character. And this is, it's oak, and it's the same oak that a barrel would be made from, but shorter staves, and doesn't have to be perfect in the way that a barrel stave does, because it doesn't have to be waterproof. So for something like the Butterfly Effect or Butterfly Effect Reserve Shiraz, some of the wine will spend time in barrel, but older barrels, and then we'll put oak staves in a tank, and so some of the new oak, the kind of fresh, sweet, spicy, attractive, smoky oak will come from the staves. And a new barrel, so French oak barrel on average, we probably pay about 1,600 Aussie dollars, which, would that be 800 pounds? Anyone good with this?
Yeah.
And American oak, perhaps $1,000 a barrel. So if we use, sorry, get rid of this. If we use a lot of brand new oak, it will add probably $1.50 or $2 a litre to the cost, the embedded cost of the wine. And using those staves, it probably only adds about 10 cents a litre. So we can get really that layer of oak nuance, or anyway, we get some oak character into the wine, but the wine doesn't have to be crazy expensive because it doesn't cost as much to do it.
That was worth you dropping in and dropping out and coming back again. Thank you very much, Sam. Nice one.
You saying it was good that I disappeared for a while?
Oh, we just need a break. You know, sometimes that's healthy. Good to have you back.
All right. Well, I think we're just about out of time there, so we'll wrap up there. Thank you so much, Nina and Sam, for joining tonight. It's been a fascinating discussion. It's been great to be back on Thursday, Tuesdays. I definitely missed these. And thanks to all the angels who tuned in tonight. And yeah, thanks for all the great wines. We'll continue to drink them for you if you keep making them. And other than that, thanks everyone, and stay safe. And we'll see you tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night. A raft of events.
Cheers.
Guys,
Thanks
thanks.
for having us.
Angels.